Marty, you're good for 6 times? Wow. Welcome to the Autosport Radio 2017 show. I'm your host, Don Kay. We are live from McGilvery Speedway, 30th and High School in the beautiful town of Speedway. And if you come to Speedway for one of many reasons, one might be the light show at the Speedway, I think starts in November and December. Make sure you stop by McGilvery's. They got great food, great service, best servers in the city, and their adult beverages are ice cold. And I want to make mention, there is going on currently from the 25th of October to the 5th of November, it's called Savor Speedway. You can go to the savorspeedway.com website, see the participants. There's restaurants, boutiques, and shops are involved. You can see who they are. One of them happens to be McGilvery's, and they've got a great selection. You can get a pork tenderloin or beef stew, which is delicious, incidentally. And they have what's called a corned beef bite, which is delicious. It's a good deal. Look around. If you haven't been to some of the places that are on the list, go out and try them out. And also, if we were to have a program on the 21st of November, would anybody show up? That's 3 days before Thanksgiving.
2 days.
That's what I said, 2 days. If anybody would be interested in coming, I have a potential guest to start with. All right, we'll look into that. I may send an email out or put it out somewhere and see how many responses, if there's enough. And my first scheduled guest for next week is the co-owner of Steinbrenner Andretti Autosport Indy Lights team with driver Colton Herta. It's George Michael Steinbrenner IV will be here. And he was here once before. He made a great guest. Tonight's Autosportradio.com show is presented by Honda HPD, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Verizon IndyCar Series, and the SVRA. As I have mentioned on several occasions, the doctor's appointment everybody loves is the dental. And I'm telling you, I highly recommend, because we've been there and used it, the Indy Dental Group. Dr. Jack Miller and his wife, Dr. Liz Lewis, have a fantastic practice. It's big, too. Make an appointment. Their number is 317-941-7300 or 846-6125. And if you want to know what's going on in the world of Mazda Road to Indy program or the IndyCar Series, you got to subscribe to Trackside Online. Go to tracksideonline.com and sign up. You'll get all the PR from all the race teams. You'll find out what's going on in the tests. In fact, if you travel, you want to find out the good restaurants, Patrick will tell you where to go to eat as well. If you have computer troubles, which I seem to be very good at, you got to go to Computer Overdrive. Talk to Jack. He can fix anything. You can reach him at 317-328-0766. And if Christmas is coming and you got anybody in your house that would like a drone, go to the back at Computer Overdrive and talk to Mark. He knows all about it. He can tell you what's going on. Now, my first two guests. One gentleman is new here, and one has been here a number of times. The one closest sitting to me is a former Formula One driver and IndyCar driver. He is an author. He is a world-renowned motivational speaker, or in his case, motivational speaker, and a broadcaster for better than 25 years. So I have a feeling he has a pretty good idea on what's going on. He's got a new video out, which I sent out to a bunch of people, telling youngsters from the start to getting to become a professional racer how to do it. We're going to talk about that. Please welcome Mr. Derek Daly.
Thank you. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
And sitting next to Derek is a gentleman I've had the pleasure of being around for a number of years. He is the owner of Sugar Creek Productions. He works and handles the PR for American Honda and the Honda HPD. So I want to find out what's Honda's going. And strangely enough, the video that Derek did was underwritten by Honda, so I thought it was a good mix. Please welcome Mr. Dan Layton.
Thanks, Don. Good to be back.
Derek, you have, obviously you have a son that's a racer, so you've guided him, but you learned early on how to go from point A to point 9 in a very quick time. You made the mistakes by your own admission, not by mine, so you got a pretty good idea what it takes to succeed and become a professional driver.
Well, I think in a way I was lucky that I made all the mistakes you could possibly make in my early days of my career, because it becomes an incredible lesson, even though it's difficult at times. But without a doubt, I derailed my career at every possible opportunity in the early days of junior racing, the junior development series. And then it all happened really fast when I began to, get my act together a bit. But I've always had a passion for the younger driver, whether it was because of the struggle that I personally experienced. I've just always had a bit of a passion for maybe trying to pass on some useful information to the young grassroots drivers who might be 12 or 13 or 14, who might have a dream like I did when I was that age. And I just think it was a bit of a calling for me to pass on the information. So it's not a job, it's not a chore, it's still, a hobby or something that I truly enjoy, to keep doing seminars or keep trying to influence not just young drivers but their families. Because as much as we know about our sport, I think motor racing is probably the most unstructured sport in the world today. There is zero structure around our sport. For example, if you're stick and ball, if your sibling is gifted as a stick and ball player, when he's a teenager or when she's a teenager, they're already being scouted in high school, and they're already being prepped with scholarships to go to college. And if you're still supremely gifted, the pro divisions of stick and ball are going to pay millions of dollars to grab you and put you into an environment that is so structured, has all the equipment, all the coaching, all the financing, all the information, everything you need to know. We don't have it in our sport. And we have arguably one of the most dangerous and one of the most expensive sports in the world. And so this unstructured platform that we have puts families in a difficult position because they just don't know what to do. They arrive in the sport, their sibling has talent, he understands the dynamics of a racing car and can win races, but suddenly they get consumed by this sport that's expensive and they have no structure to lean upon. So what I've tried to do is try and help create the structure potentially that a family could follow. And it won't be easy, but at least a path or a structure that the family could follow. And Honda are very, very keen in the grassroots. Maybe Honda may have spread themselves further across grassroots than most manufacturers we understand. And Honda sort of knew what I was going to try and do, and so they've underwritten the new video series. And it's generally available. So a family can literally be in their own kitchen, jump onto the link and literally see step by step in a 5-video series how they may navigate this largely unstructured sport that we're in. So it's whatever investment they do make, and the family is the first line of investments for these young kids. So whatever investment they do make, the hope is that the return will be as high as possible by potentially following this path that Honda has laid out for them.
I've known through the years young kids coming up, and mom and dad get all enthralled 'cause he can win, but they have no idea what to do. They think, well, hell, he's a winner. It's nothing. Oh, really?
Well, the biggest problem our sport also has is the families get emotionally engaged. And so suddenly, instead of making intellectual decisions, they're making emotionally based decisions. And once you make emotionally based decisions, oh, my son, my daughter is the best, and they can be the youngest ever to win at this level, and I'm going to buy them whatever engine, whatever car, the best of equipment. If you have the best of everything from an early time, your learning scope is minimized because you no longer have to work to understand how to make what you have faster than the guy beside you. So it's a double-edged sword. But the worst thing parents can do is make emotionally based decisions, because then the checks get really big really quickly and the burnout arrives really quickly, and you never see them potentially in the sport again.
As Derek mentioned, Honda is really big into the grassroots. What is their intention? I mean, they want to see kids get the right equipment so they can compete decently, and of course Derek will then tell you how you make the progress, but Honda's big into a number of series the early on where they work their way up.
Yeah, I mean, we want to grow the sport. I mean, that's the future of the sport is kids and people coming up, the teenagers and the 20-year-olds. So if we're going to grow the sport, we've got to encourage them. We've got to encourage their participation and try and make it as easy as possible. Honda's been involved in a variety of racing series, SCCA, NASA Club Racing for years and years, go-karting for years and years, quarter midgets for years and years. And then in more recent years now, we're trying to take that next step up from karting into the pro ranks.
Yeah, I think Honda sponsors provides the engines or has engines in the, was it F4?
Yeah. Yeah, the F4 series, the FIA started up about 3-4 years ago, I want to say, Derek. And as a worldwide formula, as a first step out of karting, and try to make it as cost effective as possible. It's really that's the key, is to keep the budget where more people can afford it. And we jumped on that bandwagon with both feet 3 years ago and launched the series 2 years ago. And this year we had average of 33 cars per race.
I mean, there's kids now step into go-karts at 4 years of age, 5 years of age. There are probably more Honda engines powering go-karts today than any other manufacturer in the world. I think it's important to remember, there's probably, as I look around here, there's nobody in this room that's the future of this sport. Would we agree with that? There is nobody. The future of what we all love and the legacy that we could potentially leave is to try and educate the new young blood, the rich vein of young kids who have that dream, because that's what, the future generations, that's what we hope they cheer for. And so, Honda is a brand. It wants to sell cars. But it's also a competitive brand because competition proves the product. And to think that a manufacturer can reach across a kitchen table potentially and say, hey, we're here to help you. We don't mind if you buy a car or not from us. Maybe you will, but we're here to help you anyway. That's such great goodwill to build within families that can build on the future of our sport.
The thing I found interesting, last week I had the mayor of Hinchtown here. And I said, where in the world did you come up with Hinchtown? He said, believe it or not, we were in a basement, sitting on cases of beer, drinking them as well. And we got half pie-eyed, and we're trying to think of something that would be catching. And we come up with Hinchtown. I said, that's what young kids don't realize. You got to brand yourself. Anywhere in the motorsports world, you mention Hinch or Hinchtown, everybody knows what you're talking about. And I've tried to get these young kids, I'm going to end up in IndyCar. Do you have a resume? I don't need one. They know me. No, they don't. They did 30 years ago. They don't now. You've got to tell them who, and you got to brand yourself.
Yeah, branding is a whole other subject. That's a bit of a, it's a sore subject with me to a great extent, because I grew up in an era where drivers were branded. Mario Andretti's helmet was the same the first year I ever saw him race to the last year. Johnny Rutherford had the same helmet. Drivers had signatures and identifications that became their brand. When sponsorship came in and owners began to say to drivers, you no longer can have your brand. You need to paint your helmet the color of my sponsor on the side of my car. I understand the logic, but what it did was take away the brand. There's very few drivers, even IndyCar drivers today, that have a brand. Now, I've known Joseph Newgarden since he was 13 years of age. He and Connor raced together in Newcastle right from the early teen years. I couldn't tell you what Joseph Newgarden's brand is today. There's no design, there's no color, there's no anything that tells me, no matter what car I see on the racetrack, there's Joseph Newgarden. In the years long ago, we knew that. Now, NASCAR have done a better job because the drivers had numbers. You sort of knew a driver by his number. But I think one of the biggest failings of IndyCar in particular is the brand confusion, and it starts, believe it or not, with the drivers.
Yeah, but the thing is, if Hinch can put any helmet he wants. Just say Hinch or Hinchtown, and everybody knows.
But Hinchcliffe believe it or not, has a brand. His helmet is the same with the red flash on the front, so no matter where he is on the grid, you know, there's Hinchcliffe, there's Hinchtown right there. That is part of his brand building. Anyway, let's not get off the subject.
Okay, we won't get off the subject. When did you come up with this idea to put this video together? How long have you been working on that project? I mean, you write books.
So
you're an award-winning author.
Okay, so let me try and give you a bit of a snapshot to how this whole thing happened. There are two sets of skills that a driver and a driver support team needs to have to develop. A, the driver skills, talent identification, technical skills, communication skills, physical skills. So the driver has a set of skills he needs to develop. Alongside him, his support team starts with his family. They need to have a set of support skills that will develop alongside him, because ultimately somebody's going to have to fund this. To think you're going to get sponsorship when a kid's 15 years of age, you're dreaming. It won't happen. And to think you're going to get major sponsorship, what we would call commercial sponsorship, in the junior series, it doesn't happen. So you have to develop the support skills, i.e. how you will raise the funding to keep your driver in a position to keep learning his trade until his brand is built and he's successful enough that professional teams will eventually say, we like him and we'll give him an opportunity. And so there's a crossover. So let's say year one. What I did is I built what we call the X Factor over 5 years. And if you look at the X Factor, and I'll try to explain this to people who can't see it here, the X Factor is a big X on a graph that has the driver skills all mapped out for the first 5 years. Make sure you understand the type of talent you're born with. Is it instant reflex, or is it feel sensitive? Are you a feedback driver, or are you a reactionary driver? One's not right or wrong, but it's different. Then you have to learn the technical understandings to become a good technical reader of the car to give the feedback. That's about year 2. Year 3, you better be able to communicate well, because now the television cameras are beginning to come around and have a look at you, because hopefully you're winning races. Now that brings its own pressure with it, so you better have mental skills that are developed. And by the time you're into year 5, now you're into long, hard races, you better be physically ready to do all this. So let's say they're the driver skills. Now, go back to year 1 again, the start of the X. Your family better have a financial matrix. What that is, a plan. How are we going to raise the money? Now, year 1, we're going to pay for it ourselves, essentially, right? Year 2, now we have to actively go out and seek funding. 99% of all funding for junior drivers comes from people already within your sphere of influence. Friends, family, their network, they know the neighbor, they want to see him do well, their uncle said this, their friend, and they all say, oh, I want to see our neighbor, our cousin, our Johnny. 99%, it's proven, comes from people within your sphere of influence. That's about year 2. Now if the money flows, now he's beginning to win races, now the brand is being built. See the brand? Now, this is trusting is successful. So when you begin to build the brand, now you put professional marketing together in about year 4. Now you got proper proposals, they're printed, they look good. You're going to the commercial market now, away from the friends. And if the winning keeps coming by year 5, the hope is you've done enough to attract sponsorship. So that's the support skills and the driver skills that cross over in an X Factor. And the X Factor was what Honda saw and said, why don't we turn this into an easily understandable educational video? Because video is one of the greatest educational tools, because it emotionally engages somebody as they watch, as they absorb the information. And that's how the whole video thing got structured into 5 videos that covers the 5 development years of the junior drivers, the grassroots drivers. And if you watch it, it'll give you the basic principles of what the driver should be doing there or thereabouts in year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And it's been really successful. we probably don't have it out in the masses yet, but remember, it's a small audience in our sport. But again, it's Honda trying to educate the families in an easy to understand way for the good of our sport, to create the youth movement that will be the future of our sport.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. I mean, our goal is to provide the tools, and then Derek and his people provide the direction.
Now, Honda being involved in helping in the various series as they make their way up the ladder, does Honda, when they get up to the Mazda Road to Indy program, and then obviously you're not involved in that, but you watch guys, I'm sure, like everybody, and you see them, does Honda have any influence on teams say, hey, here's a kid to look at, in case you haven't seen him?
We watch drivers at all levels and in all areas of the sport. I mean, open wheel and sports cars and, overseas. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're talking about IndyCar, at the end of the day, it's the teams that make the decision. But do they talk to us? Do they consult us? Yes, on a regular basis they do. Do we have our own ideas and our own suggestions? Yes, and we're never shy about expressing them.
Really?
Yeah, and remember, now, Honda and Mazda are competitors against each other in the marketplace, but they both have the common goal to develop the motorsports platform, because without the platform, the whole competition element goes away. So although they're competitors on the racetrack, they absolutely liaise with one another and absolutely want to see the best drivers get into the best positions, because a rising tide raises all boats. Whoever brings the driver through, whether it's the Mazda system or the Honda system, if there's success at the other end, it only benefits the sport and enriches the sport.
Dan, what's your opinion of the Mazda Road to Indy program? Is it successful?
Oh, I think you can't argue with the results. I think there's a place for it. I think there's a place for our program as well. Again, at the end of the day, we both want to grow the sport. And there's multiple ways of doing that. Their way is proving successful. I believe our way is also proving itself to be successful.
Yeah,
Have you ever heard of Spencer Piggott?
Yep.
Yeah, I did.
The Mazda Road to Indy.
Right.
He's an IndyCar driver today because of Mazda.
Yep.
Connor Daly. He's an IndyCar driver today because of Road to Indy.
Yep.
Joseph Newgarden. There's three pretty strong success stories, all down to the investment by Mazda into the grassroots and the youth of our sport to help it grow and popularize it in the years to come.
And you can make the same case for Simon Pagenaud, who's someone we noticed early on and helped as much as we could to bring up, and now is an IndyCar star.
And he drove with Gilles de Ferrin in your sports car program back, now you told me, I thought it was 5 or 6 years ago. It's 10 years ago. And I talked to him when he was in that program because they ran with Indy a lot, and he said, I'm going to change my name. I said, what are you going to change your name to? Simon Indy. I said, why? Because I know I can do it. I said, well, Gilles going up to IndyCar. Won't he take you? Well, obviously he didn't, but needless to say, he made it, and he can do it. Mazda and Honda are kind of interesting in that you take the young kids and work them up, then Mazda takes them and builds them up, and then you can pick them up again on the other end in the IndyCar series and the sports car series.
Yep. Yeah, again, like I said, it's not that we're beating each other over the head. We both want to grow the sport. So at the end of the day, if a driver is coming up through their program is somebody we want to take a look at and maybe put in an IndyCar, we don't hesitate. Joseph Newgarden's an ideal example. I mean, he started out driving for Sarah Fisher, and Sarah Fisher was a Honda team at the time. It was great. We loved having Joseph.
Does Honda have any? Can they do anything for, say, look here, Joe, you got a team you need to drive. We got one. We'll help you get them there. Is there rules that limit what Honda and or the other guy can do to help a team or a driver?
At the end of the day, neither one of us have unlimited budgets. So everything is driven by how much can we afford to spend in this one area or that particular area, or with this person or that person. So it's not an unlimited tap, but yeah, there are things that we can do and we've done in the past and we'll continue to do in the future to help drivers.
I would say when the truly talented drivers are identified, Honda would be in a position, and maybe in the years to come even stronger, to make sure that driver at least is exposed to the opportunity to allow him to prove that he warrants more and more support. And the European model is very like this. I mean, in France, ELF is the national oil company of France. Elf, for 25 years, financed the grassroots of French racing. When they stopped, when they pulled out, there were 7 French Formula One drivers. Then they stopped. Within 7 years, there were no French Formula One drivers and no French Grand Prix. So you see how important the grassroots is to the future of the sport and to the engagement within a country when you follow your own stars particularly.
And the other thing is longevity. You know, like Derek just mentioned, you know, if you run a program for 5 or 10 years, then you pull out and there's no one to replace you, the sport suffers as a result. So you want to try and make your program sustainable and is in there for the long haul.
By the way, if anybody's listening and wants to know where the videos are,
I was going to get to
the easiest place to view the videos is go to the SCCA Pro website. There's a link right on the front page. Everybody knows SCCA, but SCCA Pro website, there's a link for the Honda videos right on the front page. Bang, go in there and have a look.
I looked at it, I watched it, and when I got finished, I was looking for a helmet. I'm ready.
Well, let me just tell you something. You're too old.
Oh,
this is grassroots,
I hadn't thought
not
of that.
past roots.
You know, speaking of Honda, when I was in the military, I was in Japan and I met Mr. Honda twice. I mean, we weren't pals. I met him twice. And I found that it was interesting. He was big into motorcycles, loved motorcycles, and he raced motorcycles. Then he moved to cars and went, uh-oh, this is expensive, which is how Honda Motors came about, built cars to continue racing. Does a win by Honda, say in the 500, they've done fairly well of late, does that translate into sales?
We believe it does. I mean, otherwise, you know, that's part of a reason for doing it. It definitely raises the image of the company overall as performance-related firm, and we think we see the results in the sales tables.
So Mercedes-Benz 25 years ago were known in Germany in particular and Europe as the old man's luxury car. You didn't buy a Mercedes until you were near retirement age. You had gray hair. That's the market that Mercedes were in. They wanted to flip that and bring the numbers down. They started motor racing. They currently spend $400 million a year on a Formula One program. They have 1,200 people in the Formula One team, 472 engineers alone, just to win on the racetrack, right? People will say a ridiculous amount of money to spend on motor racing. Formula One is currently the largest watched sports platform in the world. Last year, Mercedes-Benz had record car sales across the globe in a younger targeted demographic than they've ever seen before. So do you think it's money well spent on competition? Absolutely, because competition is an image creation tool. You win on the track, the perception that you give all across the globe in Formula One terms of a young, hip, high-performance vehicle. And Mercedes certainly have been super successful with a huge investment in Formula One.
You were going to say?
And it proves our competency as a manufacturer and our ability to be on the cutting edge of technology as well. The Honda Civic Type R that's come out this year, you know, that base engine that's in that same car is in both the F3 and F4 cars that we're producing now. The Civic itself is just, you know, it capitalizes on our racing success and gets to that 20-something audience, that Generation X.
Now, a number of years ago, and I won't make myself sound stupid by not remembering, but initially I think when Honda got big time into IndyCar, you used to bring engineers from Japan. They'd work on these things, pick up things and take it back and put it in the car. Do they still do that, or is that slowed down because they build cars here?
Well, the Japanese engineers nowadays work on either the Formula One program or the domestic racing program. So here in the States, yes, our engineers from Honda R&D in Ohio and California, they'll spend stints with the race team and then go back to designing street cars for the future.
Well, does it cross when they get done designing, do they send it over here and say, here, try this, it works for us on the track?
Oh, we do a lot. You know, there's a lot back and forth between the U.S. and Japan in terms of technology and things we're finding out on engine development and just things like lubricant friction, things like that you can find.
But think of all the things that were developed because of competition.
Yep.
Disc brakes, fuel injection, carbon fiber helmets, bulletproof visors. Even the seat belts that we wear. Volvo in 1949 was the first car manufacturer to put a seat belt in a car. Racing developed the stretch nylon that you need, that when you do hit something hard, it doesn't just stop you dead. You stretch so you can survive it. But there's nothing like competition that forces engineers to learn, and then the technology makes its way into the road cars. I mean, all the electronics in road cars today, carbon fiber supercars of today, all came from the racetrack.
I got wind the other day that, speaking of helmets and safety, that Bill Simpson is working on one that he may bring to racing that weighs less than 2 pounds. And is stronger than anything. Now, figure out how he's done that.
Well, Bill
Heaven only
Simpson
knows.
is one of the true geniuses
Absolutely.
that is so passionate about this sport. And without a doubt, there are drivers that walk around today because of his passion to push the safety envelope further than anybody might have ever done without his knowledge or understanding of the sport.
And to think it all started because he scared the heck out of himself in a drag-through, and he developed the parachute, and that started the whole thing. Amazing.
He's probably still scaring the hell out of himself.
Yeah, I think so, but I'm not sure at what, and I don't want to know. What's next for you? You travel the world. How long did it take you to build your motivational company to function?
Well, I still do a lot of keynote speeches. I'll probably do 35, 40 a year. Next, in 2 weeks' time, I'll go to New York for a fundraiser to raise some money for the grassroots young Irish kids back in Ireland, because there's only one racetrack in Ireland, believe it or not. And so the opportunity that you think is difficult here is even more difficult back in my homeland. So I like to try and keep tabs on what they do over there. And there's a movement with an Irish group in New York to raise a chunk of money to try and find some young Irish kid that has a dream who may end up racing in a Honda Series in America. We don't know where it might be. But again, it's just part of the passion that I like to pay it forward, if you like, or return the favor from the sport. They gave me, everything that I have, so I do that. And I happen to have an event for IBM while I'm there that 2 nights before, so I mix that in at the same time. But I enjoy what I do. I don't have a lot of plans a long way out. But I just enjoy what I do. I like to do it, and I'll do it as long as I have fun doing it.
As a broadcaster, now you haven't been in a car in a few years, but has the actual racing changed in that? Because I asked Gary Benthausen, he was a coach. I said, "You haven't been in a car in 10 years." He says, "It doesn't matter. When you get to turn 1, you got to turn here. I don't care how fast you're going." So it still translates. Do you find that when you're broadcasting that you still understand and can see what's happening and what's going on?
Very definitely, yeah. I think nowadays, television broadcasting, you have more access to on-track action than you've ever had back in my day. The onboard cameras now, what they can do, how they can do it, the HD format, we can see it so clearly. It's unprecedented coverage. However, I think the worst thing that ever happened motor racing was onboard cameras, because it makes it look so easy. They just sit there and they drive. Oh, I can do that. But the onboard cameras take away the violence of what goes on in the cockpit, takes away the true speed. I encourage everybody, when they're new to the sport, go stand outside turn 1 at Indy and go along the grandstand there and just feel the car go by. It shocks people just how the velocity of these things, and then imagine when something goes wrong at that type of speed. That's when you truly feel what these drivers try and do when they wrestle with these things at times, and that's what makes the sport so great. But television sucks a bit of that away. You have to go see it live from time to time to appreciate what's going on.
That's funny Derek mentions that, because that's the exact same thing I tell newcomers to the sport. Go to the outside of the first turn. I don't care if it's a road course or an oval.
Yeah.
Go to the outside of the corner and watch the sheer physics of the car as it approaches the corner and goes.
So I went to Gateway this year, back at Gateway in St. Louis for the first time. The first 3 practice sessions, in qualifying, I was outside turn one, exactly where I'll always go at an oval, because I still marvel at what the great cars and drivers can do under pressure at a corner like that.
You know, one of the things that bothers me is the younger fans, if you get them to the track, you can hook them. When they see the competition, the speed and all the flash and all that kind of thing. But to get them going now, everything is in your hand. They don't have auto shop anymore. You can't work on your car. You don't have the car guys, you know, that were just like when I was a kid. Geez, you couldn't get under the hood fast enough. But now you can't, for half the time you can't change the plugs. You can't find them. You can't change,
It's
adjust
a
the
different
spark
model.
'cause it's gone.
It's a different model today. Different model than anybody here has ever experienced. So you have to cater for the younger set. Motor racing is probably behind most sports in providing digital information. I mean, most sports, you've been able to watch it live on your phone for years. That's how people consume what they call media these days, which would be the race. And so if that's the case, you have to make it available to them. But I think, again, a lot of racetracks think it's a privilege to allow somebody at 14 years of age into the paddock. I think it's a huge mistake not to let them in when they're 10 years of age. I saw my first car race when I was 12. Now, I'd say that's pretty late.
Yeah.
I was 12 years of age. I remember it today. It's clear, the noise, the color, the smell, the vibrations. I remember it today like a HD video in my brain. Unless you catch those kids at 8 and 10 years of age and intrigue them with the sport and hook them, somebody else will. And then they're gone. You never get them back. You're a secondary sport. So I think another failing of our sport in general is they think it's a privilege to allow the young people into the paddock. No, 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 no. It's a necessity. Move heaven and earth and convince your insurance company that if you don't allow these kids in, you won't be insuring anybody in the future because the sport will be gone.
Wasn't it Randy Bernard or somebody that let kids in free into the pit or into the paddock? I forget who it was.
Maybe
It was a great-
one of the most creative marketers that IndyCar's had for a long time.
And he was he should have been in the marketing. I think he had some good ideas, but I think he was the one that let him in. And of course, a lot of people scream, "You can't have kids there. Why not?"
You make them a fan when they're young, and they're a fan for life.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's it. And by the way, I've tried watching races on my hand. It doesn't work real well on this. Is there a solution to that? Yeah, I know one.
Yeah, there is.
I don't think that's funny at all. Do you think the kids now have the talent that you had when you started? Are they more talented when they start out? Do they have more information? They know more about to some degree?
Without a doubt, they develop earlier. They're exposed to it earlier. They have more information earlier. I mean, when I raced Formula One, we didn't even have physical trainers. I mean, if you had cramps, you drank more water. You took salt tablets. If you got tired, you worked out more because you thought you weren't fit enough. I mean, it was just, suck it and see. Nowadays, I mean, kids have personal trainers when they're 10 and 12 years of age, trying to get them in peak physical form. So we definitely know more, which is why they learn faster, they start earlier, which is why you have people like Max Verstappen in Europe winning a Formula One race when he was 18 years of age. I mean, it's unprecedented. Nico Rosberg was testing Formula One when he's 17. 17? That's high school. Think of what parents would think about letting your child go above 100 miles an hour in anything. Never mind drive a Formula One car when he's a high school student.
Well, I got the link from Dan, actually. He didn't send it to me only, and I looked at what you've done, and I thought, now you're on the right track. I mean, this is something kids need to look at, the same as they need to have a resume, because everybody doesn't know who you are. I don't care if you've won 50 races in USAC, that doesn't mean everybody knows you, the people that come to the race do. Something that's bothered me, in Europe, when the drivers have come here, a lot of times they've been backed as they went along. I don't understand why Americans don't go after a company and say, here, grow with me. We start out at $100 a month. And as we grow and get better known and get more
Yeah.
networking available for you, then the sponsorship grows. But nobody does that I'm aware of.
Well, something that other countries have in spades over America is national pride in their motorsports athletes. I don't know whether you watched the Mexican Grand Prix yesterday, Sunday, but just about everybody in the stands had a Mexican flag. They have a Mexican driver in the race. He's the only one they cheered for. Why? National pride. There's our guy. Which is why I always said Formula One will never make it in America until it has somebody to cheer for, and the athlete is the person to cheer for. America is a bit of a melting pot of nationalities. There isn't the national pride in supporting motor racing athletes like there is in Europe. So Brazilian companies will sponsor their young Brazilian drivers and send them afar, not as an ambassador for the company, but an ambassador for the country also. They take great pride in having their athletes go across the world and wave the flag of their country in other countries. America doesn't do that at the level Europe does it, or Japan does it, or Brazil, South America does it. I mean, when Sato won the Indy 500 here, we knew about it, and we were respectful of him winning it, but we really didn't care. Understand what I'm saying here now, right? He went to Japan. The president of the country met him at the airport. He was in all the national newspapers. I mean, he is a sports hero now in Japan for all the reasons of national pride. I understand that. I still don't care like I would if an American guy won or an Irish guy won, because we're attached to them. And I think everybody here is probably attached to a driver somewhere, whether it was Tony Stewart or whether it was Connor Daly or whether it was Joseph Newgarden. You get an emotional attachment to a driver, and he becomes your guy. And when he wins, you scream. And when he wins, you cheer. And you buy his hat or his T-shirt. That's what pride in the athlete is. We don't have it here at the level they have it in Brazil. So, for example, Connor just lost his ride at Foyt. The check that came to support the driver came from Brazilian television. That's the money that bought the ride out from under Connor, because Brazilian television want to feature their Brazilian guy on their Brazilian network to grow their Brazilian audience. I mean, it makes sense, but what does it do for the growth of IndyCar?
Yeah, that's the
So you
question.
see the conundrum?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's the difficulty in managing the growth of the sport and yet having it international enough whereby we welcome everybody to our shores. Like, I love the idea of Joseph Newgarden taking on every foreigner that comes here and kicking their ass and sending them home without the trophy or the check. Yeah, you go from Tennessee, right?
Or why not have an Alexander Rossi cheering section, or a James
Yes.
Hinchcliffe cheering section,
Yes.
or a Connor Daly cheering section?
Yes. Yeah.
All those things.
Since,
That's what we need.
Since Connor's been coming here, when he first came, there are people here and they went, nice. Now he's got a following. And I think, did Foyt make a mistake? In my opinion, yes. But does Foyt need the money? Probably not, but he didn't want to spend his, so take it from where it comes from.
Yeah, and I mean, these things have a habit of sorting themselves out. We end up where we're supposed to end up. So I think this will all sort itself out too. But you see the roller coaster that young American drivers have to push against to make it. You know, people think Joseph Newgarden was an overnight sensation. Wow, 1 year at Penske and he wins. What they don't understand is he's 6 years, full seasons in the sport before he became the athlete that he is today. And I mean, that's just a fact. You know, miles maketh the man. If you don't give him the opportunity to develop, you know, it might not happen. Nigel Mansell might be as big a name in the world of motor racing as we know. He was 96 Formula One races before he won a race. This was Nigel Mansell, arguably one of the best in the world.
When Formula One came to Indianapolis, I was furious. people in the stands couldn't see the race because of Ferrari flags. And I said, I got to bet you that Ferrari makes all their racing money selling their hats and their shirts and their flags and the whole thing, because they were everywhere. And Ferrari's got a huge following. I think when they go to Italy, the other guys might as well stay home.
Yeah. Ferrari is the best known merchandise name.
Yes.
Sorry, second best known merchandise name in the world, next to Coca-Cola.
Yeah. They probably make as much money selling merchandise as they do in profit from their cars.
Oh, probably do. And some SOB was in front of me with a Ferrari flag. And I had an idea where I'd like to put it. He said it won't fit. I said, well, you're probably right.
Did you try?
No. Well, I'll tell you what, I want to thank you guys both for coming. I know it's difficult because you're on the road. By the way, before we leave quick, Acura is getting back into sports car racing, and you got some people that have been there before and done it. Penske owns the team, and there's some kid, Helio, what's his name, Helio? Elio is behind the wheel of a car. That's going to be a powerful team.
Yeah, we're looking forward to getting back into prototype racing after a 5-year absence as a manufacturer team. I mean, we're really looking forward to it. Our initial testing's gone well. We'll be testing at Daytona in a couple of weeks here.
Are you going to go down and watch?
I'll be at the test at Daytona, yep.
Yeah, but it's only a couple-day test. You're going to be there for 3 weeks? No, I just made that up. Oh, boy. Yeah, there you go.
I just want to prove I'm here with the legend. Can anybody help buy this guy a phone?
No. And I even got a text from Steve. He's waiting there. Said, I thought I was
Text? You know how to use text?
Oh, yeah. It takes a long time. This thing, you miss this thing, and it all gets screwed up. But I want to thank you. I know you're on the road a lot, and you said when I contacted you, I'm available the 31st. Well, jeez. Or no, you gave me 2 dates. Dan was only available the 31st, so it worked out. I'm thrilled with what you're doing. I think you're aiming in the right direction. I hope you're successful in New York on both sides, but one of them is to raise some funds to get it. Is there any Irish driver that's capable now that enough prodding and
There hasn't been for 15 years. So the last one that came from Ireland was Eddie Irvine. So he made it all the way to Ferrari Formula One. But there's been a 15-year void. So it's about time that we identify somebody who's 12 years of age, maybe 13, 14, talks with an Irish accent, and they can bring him to McGilvery's. And he can meet the great Don Kay.
Bring him to an Irish pub in Speedway, Indiana. How much
Right,
more?
exactly.
Was there anybody on the horizon that meets all those?
No, not that we know of yet.
So you're going to have to raise a hell of a lot of money to get, so you can work on some people and get iron it out to one.
Right, it's not easy. Enough to plug him into the Honda system.
Right. Again,
There you go.
the 5-step program, you got to start step 1.
Yeah.
You got to go to sccaproracing.com and look at this.
Yeah.
It's interesting. If you're a race fan, you got to look at it. It's really good. And it might inspire you. I said, well, I could probably get into car. It's getting out that I got the trouble with. I could slide down trying to push back up. It ain't going to work too well. I thank you for your time, for both of you.
Thank you.
Dan, I'm glad to finally get you in here one time because I know you travel a lot. And one of the things you want to do is you want to subscribe to Trackside online, because some of the stuff he sends out is there. So if you don't get to see it, they'll give it to you so you can read what they're doing and what's going on. It's really quite interesting. Thank you both.
Thank you.
See you next
Thanks,
time.
everybody.
Connor Daly, Dan Layton. Thank you both.
You're close. It's more than a phone he needs.
Yeah, all right. It's Connor's dad, all right. Everybody knows that.
I know what you meant.
Is it time to get new? Oh, there you are. Is it time to get new? Where the hell did he go? Do what?
Go ahead and use Derek's mic.
What's the matter with mine?
Yeah, yours was cutting out earlier.
Yeah,
You're
because
okay
it
now.
wasn't
Ah, it was you. Okay, thanks. Maybe it was me.
All right, I'll use this one. If you're looking for insurance for your home or your car, or if you have commercial property, I highly recommend VP Insurance. They're located at 5004 West 16th Street in the beautiful town of Speedway. Call Mike Pardee. You will find that the quote he will give you might surprise you. Get better coverage for less money. So give him a call. Number 317-248-0070. That's VP Insurance in Speedway, 317-248-0070. And when he sells you insurance, he doesn't not answer your call when you got a problem. He will talk to you and he will help you straighten out your problem. If you want to find out what these guys love about driving Indy cars, you got to take a ride in a two-seater with the Indy Racing Experience. Just go to IndyRacingExperience.com, find a date that works for you, and contact them. And the promo, if you do it online, which you can, or them, you give them SJ1, you get a 50% discount. It's worth it. People get in and love it. And you'll see what these guys, as goofy as you might think they are, how much fun it is and how exciting it is to run. Do you need anything embroidered? Stitches 2 can do it. They're located on Gasoline Alley. You can give Fran a call. She'd love to talk to you. Tell her what you got and what you want accomplished, and she will make it happen. The number is 317-271-3444. Sam Pierce Chevrolet is in Daleville, Indiana, which is just north of here. You got to go to the country to see why the best prices are, in fact, in the country at Sam Pierce Chevrolet. Just take I-69 north to exit 34 and go east 1 mile. You won't miss it on the right. He's right there. Check him out. He's got the vehicle for you, and he's got the service to back it up. I have 2 pair of tickets tonight for anybody who's interested in going to the Christmas Gift and Hobby Show. It runs from November 8th to the 12th, and it's at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. If anybody's interested, as I said, I have 2 pair of tickets, and the stuff they have, it runs Wednesday through Sunday. It's at the West Pavilion. It's the largest holiday shopping event in Indiana. They have Be Merry with Merry Money. Merry Money is there. It's back. They got a holiday entertainment stage. They got to take your photo with Santa. They have all kinds of things going on for people to entertain kids. And if you're looking for that special person, you can probably find it. And if you need my size, just let me know. Also, SVRA, of course, as everybody knows, will be back here in June. In fact, Tony Perella will be here the Tuesday before the PRI show. But if you want to see what's going on in the world of vintage racing, you got to go to svra.com and subscribe to the Vintage Racing Quarterly. And they also had, now that Tony's bought controlling interest in Trans Am, they got a Trans Am magazine. It is great. Speaking of Trans Am, I forgot to mention this, in case you didn't see it. Willie T has been here a number of times during June when he's here with the SVRA, and his son Theo is with him. His son Theo is a shooter. This past weekend in San Antonio, he won the national championship for professional clay shooting against more than 3,000 competitors. He was number 1. So when he comes in here next year, we're going to talk to him. I'm going to be nice because he can shoot, obviously. I don't want to be out of hand. And the last SVRA event of the year is at COTA, the Circuit of the Americas at Austin, Texas. It's the 2017 Vintage National Championship. If you're anywhere near there, you got to go down and see it. They got beautiful cars, great fun to watch, good people you sit and talk to about some of the cars you may have seen as a kid. They're there. My next guest is a gentleman that if you have Trackside online, you read him. His primary task for the most part is a Mazda Road to Indy program, but when Patrick Stefan can't make it, he takes over and does both. He keeps up with what's going on, and he's seen the last couple of tests. We're going to find out what's going on, and where is Mazda Road to Indy going? We're going to find out. Please welcome the man who does the writing for the series, Joe Blow.
Thanks, Don.
Steve Wittich.
Thanks for having me.
As was pointed out by Derek and others, the Mazda Road to Indy program is successful. It's working well. It seems to me the one problem they got is when guys work their way up, you go from the 2000 up to Pro Mazda, you move to Indy Lights. Once you've won the thing at Indy Lights, now where do you go? There's not a lot of seats around. That's kind of a problem.
It's been a problem, but it seems to be getting a little bit better. As Derek mentioned, Joseph Newgarden won the Lights Championship in 2011. He had some backing from Sarah's side, Wink Hartman, that kind of kept him in the series for a little bit longer until he could grow as a driver. You've got someone like Spencer Piggott, who's going to be back full-time this year after 2 part-time seasons. That's going to be huge for him. Ed Jones is back for another season after winning the Lights Championship in 16. So it's starting to get where the drivers are starting to stick. And you're right. It's, as Derek said, it takes time. It's seat time. This isn't 20, 25 years ago where there was unlimited testing. It's limited testing. So their seat time now comes on race weekends.
You were at the Pro Mazda car, and it's a brand new car for the 2018 season. What did you see?
It's a fantastic new car. If anybody knows what the USF 2000 car looks like now, the Pro Mazda car is sort of based off of that car, and it's just a lot more horsepower. It's got a lot more aero. It also has more electronics for the drivers to learn. It's more adjustable for the engineers. So it's that perfect next step, and it's fast. It's really fast. It's at the IMS test. It was about 3.5 seconds faster than the old Pro Mazda car. But it slots in perfectly now between the USF 2000 and Indy Lights car. There's about 5 seconds in between them, and then you go another 5 or 6 seconds to the Indy car. So it's the 3 steps are all really well defined now, and I think that'll help them grow that series too.
It seems to me, as Dan was saying, that Honda and Mazda fight for retail sales, but they work together to get the programs. And what Mazda's doing in providing funding to move up the ladder, and then they give you $1 million and a 3-race deal once you've won the Indy Lights, which Kyle Kaiser is going to drive for Juncos. Yep. Strange enough, he's been with them, 4 years now?
Yeah.
And so he'll be at the Speedway, and they've got 4 races. Mazda guarantees 3, and they got 4, and they're working to complete the season. So it does work, and it's working well. Do you think that as they progress, the succession is the way it should be, that you learn USF 2000, and then you go up to the Pro Mazda, you get some more electronics, as you said, and adjustments, then you move up to lights, and you're not going, oh! You pretty much know what you're heading to.
I think so, and I think it'll even be more the case now. There was a pretty big step between the Pro Mazda car and the Lights car. That old Pro Mazda car was a little older. It sort of fit where race cars, the way they handled 15 years ago. The new car now matches the way all 95% of race cars in the world drive. It's based off on how good you are on the brakes, how much speed you can carry through a corner. The old cars were a little more like karts, and this one's a little bit more like a proper. As a couple drivers, I talked to a lot that have driven both cars, and they all said this is a proper race car. And I've talked to a couple guys that have stepped up from USF 2000 to this new Pro Mazda car, and they said it's a perfectly natural progression. It's the same tub, so it's got the exact same feel, but it's got more tires, so you're going to be able to go faster in the corners. It's got more aero. So you're going to have to learn how to deal with that, because there's different, how close you can follow behind somebody, how much you can adjust it with your engineer to make yourself go faster, especially a place like Indy where it's drag sensitive track.
Is the Pro Mazda car and the Lights, for that matter, are they less drag as the now IndyCar will have in 2018? It's got a lot of downforce, but it's from under the car. It doesn't have the drag.
Yeah, they match up actually really well. The USF 2000 car, which debuted last year, had a lot less, I think they said about 40% less downforce than the previous USF 2000 car, and the Pro Mazda car has less downforce as well, and that means less drag, and that's sort of the way racing is starting to go. It just puts a driver back into it. If you have a car that's over downforced, and you get that a lot on the European series right now, if the car that's over downforced, overtired, underpowered, it's truly not that hard to drive. USF 2000, new Pro Mazda car, new Lights car, they're hard to drive. I've talked to a couple IndyCar engineers. We were talking about IndyCar testing, and with the new body kits, they've told me that they expect the Lights drivers from this new generation of Lights car to absolutely excel in the new IndyCar, because it takes the exact same driving style. You have to be good on the brakes. The rear end isn't as stable. It's stable, but it's going to move around a little bit, so it's something they're going to have to get used to. And apparently that's exactly how the Lights car drove. So it's going to be interesting to see who does what this year.
And the thing that I think drivers have been squawking about for a number of years is we want to be more involved in driving the car, not have it stuck to the tracks. All we got to do is turn left, or if you're on a road course, turn right. It's more in the driver's hands, so you'll see who has the ability to drive a race car. Yeah,
absolutely. And that is something the drivers, it's even, you talk to the junior level drivers, they want the exact same thing the IndyCar drivers want. Give me more power, give me less aero, let me drive the car more. And that's kind of what Mazda and Dan Anderson have done. They've taken the step from what IndyCar's done, and now it's moved back 3 different ways. And it's they've done such a good job that the electronics package is just the same, but it's stepped back each level. Everything that is in the one car is stepped back, and now even with IndyCar going with PFC brakes, that's what's in all of the road Indy cars. So now those guys actually even have a bigger advantage. They've now had that similar brake package, similar brake feel, and it's they've done a good job of just sort of stepping back the IndyCar each step.
It seems that Dan Anderson and his people, I mean, he gets the credit like Andrew Luck does when the Colts win.
Exactly.
But his people have really stepped up the program so that the intention of the Mazda Road to Indy program was to train the drivers to move up, and he's made it where it really is doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Yeah, it really is. When you look at the guys that have moved up, even into Indy Lights from Pro Mazda, you're going to get someone like Victor Franzoni moving up, and the guys that have moved up in the past, they've all been successful. And even if you look at guys that moved up from Lights to IndyCar, some of them might not have had the longest run, someone like R.C. Enerson. He's a talented kid. He's hopefully going to get another chance. But when he got to IndyCar, he was ready. And that's what Dan has tried to do, is that when these kids get to IndyCar, nothing's a surprise to them.
And RC is working on some things, and I was told by his dad, actually, they got money, but they don't want to use it all in 1 year. They want to get him a 2-year deal, and he's trying to fill in. And knowing his dad, it'll get done. And it won't be out of his pocket anymore either.
No.
Do you see the talent that's coming into the Mazda program, that they're more talented when they get there? They're not just some guy with a pocket full of money said, I want to drive a race car, Dad.
Yeah, it's definitely become that way. You'll read or hear that, the fields aren't as big as they were, when there were 30-car Lights fields, your 15 cars. I'd argue that 1 to 15 in those two fields, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's a lot better now than it was. There were a lot of guys that, they could bring in the money and their dad help them out, and that was all it was, and they weren't that talented. And now there's nobody, I'd say, that that has been through Indy Lights in a long time that does not belong there, that is not a race car driver.
Yeah, and the thing that disturbs me more than anything is, and I'm hoping they'll change it, is the Lights program runs usually on IndyCar Sunday.
Yes.
At 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And there's hardly anybody in the stands because, first off, if they're not there, they can't watch it. And if they're there, they're not going to sit in the stand and go back out and tailgate, because by the time the Indy cars run, they wouldn't be able to see the track anyway.
Yeah, everybody who misses out on it, doesn't come in for the Lights races, is certainly missing out. They run a lot of their weekends are running twice now. A weekend they'll run on a lot of times it'll be a Saturday afternoon and then a Sunday morning, which works well. You have different people there on a Saturday, which is always good. It is a big benefit to run with the IndyCar weekends. It gives the kids a chance to get familiar with what they're going to deal with when they move up to IndyCar. They're going to have to deal with press. There's guys like me asking questions. There's, if you go to a weekend, a race weekend that isn't with a big series like that, you're not going to get that training. And that's what the Road to Indy really does provide. These kids at the age of 15, 16, I'm coming to talk to them after the USF 2000 race, and they're learning very early, how to talk to the press, which helps them in the long run. It's going to help them talk to sponsors and everybody else down the road.
And I have found on several of the times when I've taken the time to wander around, the ones who see the race on Saturday afternoon, a lot of them will come back because it was good. They'll come back Sunday morning to watch it. Now they just need to get more of them to do that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's one of those, we wish we could run the Freedom 100 twice, because that race is always fantastic. But it's always run in front of a good crowd. But, yeah, it's as the junior series, they know what they're getting into on what time they run. USF 2000, the young kids, they're dew sweepers, right? They take the dew off the track with their first session each day, and that's understandable because they're the bottom of the rung, but it's still a benefit to be running with IndyCar teams, that professionalism. And there's some other benefits to running on an IndyCar weekend that you don't think about. Timing and scoring, all done by IndyCar. So it's, there's other companies that do timing and scoring, but nobody does it like IndyCar. Those parents that run in the Road to Indy, they know their kids, hey, that Hamatra safety crew, that's who's going to take care of them if they have a problem. There's nobody better in the business than that. And it's peace of mind for a lot of parents.
Oh, no question. And I think the other thing that's intriguing is how safe the cars are these days. I mean, some of the guys like I had Todd Brayton here a couple weeks ago. His brother lost his life. If he had that same wreck today, he'd get up and go just brush
yeah.
the dust off and walk away. Unfortunately, it takes sometimes a disaster to say, uh-oh, we got to look at this, because they never thought of it before. And it's made the cars safer, so the guys are a little more chancy.
Yeah, that's definitely true. You know, at the junior levels, it's interesting at the junior level. The IndyCar level, I think that might be the case. Maybe at lights. When you get down to the other levels, because a lot of these kids are bringing their own budget, they're actually worried about crash damage. So they're not probably as, you know, uncareful or careless as they could be. But when you get to the IndyCar level, yeah, I think the safety has made some moves a little more prominent than they probably should be.
Now, what do you do Monday through Friday? I mean, there's no races now, so you're not going anywhere for Trackside Online. Do you have a regular Monday through Friday job?
Yeah, I do a little bit of online e-commerce with records and record supplies. But now I'm doing a lot more of the writing. I do some freelance with some other sites and working on some other deals. And then I also just, my mom is trying to downsize. She lost my dad a year and a half ago, and she's been trying to downsize. So I actually spend a lot of time with her doing that, which is nice that I get a chance to do that.
That's good. Is it tough on a race weekend when Patrick can't be there that you got to be running around for everything?
Yeah, it can be. Those weekends can be a little stressful, but you get used to doing it, and I love doing it. I love covering the Road to Indy. I love covering IndyCar, either one. But yeah, when you're trying to cover all the series, it can get a little bit hard, and probably the USF 2000 and Pro Mazda gets a little bit less than they'd like to. But I try pretty hard to make sure everybody's covered, and we've got the detailed race reports for everything.
Oh yeah, that's what I say. If you want to find out what's going on, these guys, Steve and Patrick, will tell you. And as I said early on, if you want to know where the good places to eat in a particular area, Patrick will tell you that too, at least what he thinks.
Patrick definitely knows.
Yeah. Did you go to school to be a journalist?
Actually, no, I did not.
Oh.
I'll be honest. I went to Butler. Okay. After I started at school in Canada, actually an environmental studies degree. I was geomorphology, so rocks, studying rocks. Moved down here when my dad got transferred down here. Finished up at Butler with a communications degree. So I had a lot of journalism classes. I had a lot of PR classes, but I was in sales for a long time. Sold to banks, both on the mortgage side and on the back end processing side. And in 2008, that industry kind of took a little bit of a tank, and I changed things up and started working for myself, doing the e-commerce and the writing on the side when I got the chance, and I've been doing it ever since. And I don't know if I could work for anybody else again.
Is Joe going to be back, or is he with NBC Sports Network? That's it for him.
Joe is now retired from TSO, so it's just Patrick and I at the moment.
Oh boy.
Yep.
He's retired.
He's retired from TSO.
His
His kids are at that age where he's got lots of baseball games, and then he's doing the NBC work all the time. So that it makes it hard for him to do it on the weekend. It's a lot to do when you have a 9-to-5 job during the week too.
Now, you are aware, of course, that Patrick has a couple kids, and they're getting up to where he's going to not be able to leave.
I know.
It could be
all
of it in your lap.
Yes, I understand that, and you know what? We'll find someone to do stuff when we need it. That's usually not a problem. So sometimes we have Bruce Martin do it. We've got some other ghostwriters who I can't name by name, but they're all known quantities and people who have covered the sport for a long time.
How did you get in with Trackside?
I got to know Patrick and Joe just going to the races, and then I think it was 4 years ago they asked, hey, do you want to cover a couple test days? And then in the next year it went, do you want to cover a couple race days? Do you want to cover during the month of May when no one else is here? And then I think maybe 3 years ago they said, hey, let's start this Road to Indy site. And I said, I'd love to do that. That would be right up my alley. So we started TSO Ladder, and then that's when they brought me on as one of the partners.
How does one get a hold of the TSO Ladder to get your side of the Mazda Road to Indy program? I haven't succeeded yet, but how does it happen?
Go to tsoladder.com and you can subscribe there. If you're Trackside Online subscriber, you're going to get all the IndyCar and Road to Indy news. If you just want the Road to Indy news, you can go to tsoladder.com and subscribe there, and that's $10 a year to get all that news. And we do cover, the F4 and the F3 and the F1600, and usually not as in-depth as we do with the Road to Indy, but we do try and give everybody coverage on anything that's junior open wheel in Americas. We try to cover.
And if you subscribe to Trackside Online, that isn't much more than it's little.
No, it's $22 a year.
Yeah,
That's it.
And I'm telling you, if you want to know what's going on, what the PR is from the various teams, you got to sign up. You'll find out. So when you get to the track, you won't say, "What's that?" You'll know. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to come out here. I enjoy what you guys do, and the thing that I'm impressed about is you don't have a problem because all the teams will talk to you because you put down what they say, not what you dream.
Yeah, no, we take pretty good pride in being straightforward, and there's probably more stuff we could share, but there's a sort of a standard that we've set where we're not going to share something if we don't know it's going to happen. It's just not good business policy for us, and it hurts the team sometimes too.
Oh, no question. There's nothing worse than you said Joe's going to fly to the moon and Joe doesn't go anywhere near that. You kind of look silly.
Exactly.
So, well, I appreciate what you do. I enjoy reading what you guys put out, and I hope everybody will take the time to go to tracksideonline.com and subscribe to the program, and you'll get everything and you'll know what's going on. Then you'll be smarter than I am, which doesn't take a lot.
Oh, it does. You're very smart.
Oh,
Don.
yeah.
You've got.
Yeah. All right, I appreciate your time.
No, thank you
Thanks
so much
being
for
here.
having me.
From Trackside Online and the Trackside TSO ladder, Steve Wittich. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Now, we'll be back here next Tuesday night. My first scheduled guest is the co-owner of Steinbrenner Andretti Autosport team, George Michael Steinbrenner IV. The Yankees lost, so he's back in town again, and I've been told he will be here. And I'm working with another one. I'm waiting confirmation of that. But you'll want to see George. He was very interesting when he was here. I think you'll enjoy listening to him, so come on out. Until next week, thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. And incidentally, autosportradio.com is back up and running. You can go on, log on to it on the website, and the video is right there. And you can click on the bottom and go to YouTube and to get a bigger picture. And we're also streamed live on the autosportradio.com show Facebook page, and we're on Twitter live. So if you can't find us because you're silly like me and don't know how to do it. Anyway, until next week, Don K. saying thanks for being here watching. See you next week. Good night. And happy Halloween. And if anybody wants a pair of tickets for the Christmas gift and hobby show, I have two pair.
Could I have one ticket?
I have two.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Do you want one or you want two?
Two. I'll take one.
Just one? We'll share. Thank you very much.
Well, you're not going to take the chief with you?
Heck no. He's a drag.